Hello friends, myself Shriram Korde. So in this video now we will understand how do we carry out file operations. So here I have basically put few texts. So this is what we need to accomplish. That is, we would like to read a file, and then after reading the file we would like to show the text of a file. And when we are going to read this file, then we are going to read this file character by character. Now which file basically? So I have taken a sample file here, text file, and you can see this is the file, and it has the text that I already have typed in and kept it ready. So here you will find hello, how are you doing, and things like that. Okay. So you will see some messages are there which are already part of this text file. So the path of this file is here, it's the place. You can see this temp projects vs code projects FileIO and then file1.txt. So we would like to read this file1.txt. So here another point which I would like to mention before we start coding is we want to read character by character. Now in one of our previous videos, not immediately part of files but earlier, where I have mentioned to you about uh, the way in which we have scanfs. So there are equivalent like functions which essentially are part of unformatted console IO, and there I mentioned to you about getChar or putChar and things like that, getChe and things like that. Okay, so that I have mentioned to you in one of our previous videos. So here also on the similar lines, now when we are trying to read the file, then we are going to read it character by character. That means a function which will be similar the way in which we have used it to read from console, that was like getchar or getche and getch and things like that. So on the similar lines we will also have function, however it will be related to a file. So that I just wanted to mention before we start coding. So when we are now going to develop this function, obviously as I mentioned to you in our introductory video with respect to file, so we are going to rely on a file structure, and essentially we rely on a file pointer. Okay, so for that I will basically create a capital FILE and then I will just call it as FP, okay, which is a file pointer. Then I want to read character by character, so for that I will have character CH. Okay, so once we are done, now comes a very important things, like as I mentioned to you, we need to open a file. Okay, before opening the file you can't read. That means first thing is we need to open. So how do I do that? So for that there is a function which is called as fopen. Okay, you can see this, there is a function called as fopen, and to this fopen essentially you pass the name of the file, and another important point you basically pass is the mode, and I have explained to you mode like read mode, write mode, append mode and things like that. So we will be passing the appropriate mode as per the code that we write. Okay, so then it returns a file pointer. That means now I will have to have here fp, and then basically here I will use the complete path. So I just kept this path ready. Okay, so I will just copy this path. So this is the complete path. If I do not give the path, then it is going to assume current directory, and I don't want to put somewhere in the current directory. I would like it to be part of my folder which I have created to handle files coding. Okay, so that's why you will see I am giving the appropriate path, and then I have to mention the mode. Okay, so I'll mention the mode as reading. Why? Because that's our problem. We want to read, and then obviously after reading we want to show that particular content of the file1.txt in basically in this editor, or in this basically at the prompt. Okay, so once we are done, then now we need to check if because there is a chance that if the file is not there or if the file cannot be read, then obviously we need to take care of those conditions also. So if those conditions happen, then typically you will have null. So this null is essentially 0, which is internally declared in the C compiler itself. So we don't need to worry, we just are going to use capital null. Okay, and here we will put a message puts, and then we can use, because now I have already explained to you puts, so we can simply use, or we could have used printf also. So we can simply say cannot open the file. So we can put that message. And then after that, if since you can't open the file, there is no point in continuing further. So what we typically will do is we will use exit. Okay, now exit typically means you exit out of the code. That means the main code. So how do you do that? So for that we will rely on a library which is called as stdlib. So we rely on this, and here typically we will say exit 1 or 0. So when we use 1, that means it's a abnormal exit from the function. Okay. Now the question is, are we really bothered about this 1, 0 and all that? For all practical purpose, no. Why? Because this is something similar when we give return 0 or return 1. Right now we are not doing anything at the system level. Because why? Because main returns back to the system. So and then system, if we ourselves are developing something and are interested in what gets returned, then only this value of 1 or 0 makes sense. Right now it's of not much value, but normally it's habit, like you give exit 1, so for you need to tell that it's an abnormal, and typically people will use 0 if it is for a normal. Okay, so without getting into too much of all these details, now what we need to do is we need to simply read this file. So how do I read? So basically I will use I will use this pointer. Okay, so I want to read file character by character. So I just told you this is what was mentioned. Read the file character by character. Okay, so we want to do the reading of the file character by character. So that means now we will have to do it till the file ends. Okay, so how do I ensure that? So we will see that. So I will currently use a while one loop, and in the while one loop, basically it's like while true. So this particular thing is writing like while true. Okay, so it is writing while true. Obviously, we are not going to use true here. Okay, so like that we don't have that. Okay, so what we typically will do is we will use this one. Okay, and I have mentioned to you the concept behind this and all that when in the loops portion, when we understood loops. Okay, so here we are going to write a while one loop which is like a indefinite loop. Indefinite. Okay, so it's an indefinite loop. Okay, now after this loop, what we should do is we should read the character. So that's where we have this char ch, and then when I want to read character, I am going to use a function which is similar to get char. Okay, however now it's for file, so you will see there are functions which already have started coming. So I will use this fgetc. So fgetc is essentially going to read character. Okay, so it requires this file pointer, and then it returns the character. Okay, so basically what we will now do is we will provide here fp. Okay, so we are going to read this file. So this is the place where you read the file. Okay, so this is where you read character from the file. Okay, then we will check. This is the important place. Okay, otherwise loop will not end. So we will check whether the file has ended. So you will see there is a EOF file. Okay, so this already is defined in C. So it is called as end of file. Okay, so this particular thing EOF basically means end of file. Okay, so it's an end of file. So if the file has ended, that means whatever the file that we are opening here, say file1.txt, and if it has ended, then obviously we will need to come out of this loop. So for that we will rely on break. So break, we now know that this will help us to break the while indefinite loop. Why? Because otherwise it's an indefinite loop. Otherwise, if there is no end of file, then what we do is simply we use printf, and using this percentage %c, we can print the character that we have read from the file. Then after that we will use, after the things are done, we can simply put a message done. This is our message, not a issue. And then after that, very important point, as I mentioned to you in the introductory video, we need to close. Okay, why? Because this is where the importance of this one comes. So closing the file is important. Why? Because if I write a very big code, and if I want to open it probably in to do some writing, then I can't do it unless I close it. Okay, so I need to close the file. Okay, so this is very important. So you need to close the file, and then obviously your code is done. So let's now see this in action. So let me just run this code. Yeah, so you can see this message has come. Hello, how are you doing? So this was the file. Let me just open that file, file1.txt. Okay, so let me just show you that file which we just read. And let's see. Hello, how are you doing? I'm learning C but feeling sleepy. Cool. Why don't you sleep or drink coffee? Okay, done. And this was our last done that we gave. Okay, so probably we could give here \n so that it comes later. Now if you feel okay, is there anything that if I add something and keep the file ready and then once again I run my program, then let us say that okay, so let me just put it here something here. Hi, I am typing the code. It's raining. Okay, raining these days. Something I'll put it here. Okay, so some new messages kept. I kept it and I'll close this file now. And once again now I will run this. Yeah, so you can see this. Hello, how are you doing? That message was there, and I just typed in front of you. I'm typing the code. It's raining these days. So this has come, and then obviously done has come. That means the things are done. So this is the way typically you read a file. So what exactly the step is? The step one is you open a file, then you check if it is correctly opened or not. Here the mode is very important, so just let me put mode is reading. Okay, so it's a read mode that we use, so mode is reading, so this is very important. Then so this is read mode. Okay, so this is very important. Then we will check whether the file is null, then obviously you can't proceed. Then if there is no issue, that means the file gets opened correctly, then you have a loop. In that loop you essentially read the file character by character, then you check whether the file has ended. Otherwise you just print the character what you read, and this will keep on happening in the loop. And the sooner it reaches end of file, obviously it will come out of the loop, and then it is going to print done, which actually happened in our case, and then obviously you close the file. So three steps, just summarizing. The three steps are: you basically open a file in read mode, then you have a loop where you actually do the reading, and then you close the file. So that's essentially the way in which this particular thing which we just told that we want to achieve, like read and show the text file and you do the reading character by character, essentially we could achieve it. Thank you.